Good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder and this is BRN AM for Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. And here are our top stories. PayPal seeks to make it easier to use contactless payments, and Microsoft announces Excel macro phishing scams. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Daniel Klein. He's a senior technology and consumer products reporter with The Motley Fool. Dan, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So Dan, things are opening up around America, but that doesn't mean that technology companies aren't thinking about how to keep us safe. We're wearing masks. Some of us are wearing gloves. We're supposed to stay 6 feet away. Everyone should remember to do that and continue to do that even when things open up, I might add. But firms like PayPal are investing heavily in contactless payments. What can you tell us here?
Yeah, and this is one of those things where this is really useful now, but it's also great always. So I don't know about you, but I use Apple Pay.
Yep.
And when I go to Whole Foods, all I have to do is hold my phone up to the register and it does the payment. It's absolute magic. It's not, this is something, right now we don't want to touch each other. We don't want to hand someone a credit card. We don't want to do all of those things because it's not particularly safe. But going forward, we don't want to do those things because who wants to have to take a credit card out, stuff it in the thing, wait for the beep, do all of that? You get it wrong half the time. I know that my main credit card that I use is a Capital One Venture card, and it's really thick, and it doesn't work at drive-through sometimes. When you have they bring you the machine and you slide it in, it just doesn't read correctly. Mm-hmm. So if I could just hold up my phone or my card and it goes boop-a-da-boop and it's done, that would be fabulous. And that's what PayPal is working on. I know I use Venmo, which is a PayPal product, for an awful lot of things. That's how everyone I know under 30 transfers money around. Yeah. So my personal trainer, who I think is actually over 30, but I send him money each week on Venmo. My coworkers, back when we could go out to dinner, nobody carried any money. So I would pay for dinner and then I would get $15 from this guy and $20 from that guy sent via Venmo. That's all PayPal is doing, is they're steering into the curve. And it makes sense to do more of that now because we need it. I will also point out that in this time of social distancing, it's really awesome when someone recognizes me from the network or from Motley Fool. Maybe not a selfie. That's come up a couple of times in the past week. Like, I'm really happy to meet you. We could do like a distance photo, but perhaps not a hug and a selfie. Just putting it out there. That's come up a couple of times this week, and it's been a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can see why. I mean, people, I think, just going, before we jump back into contactless payments, I think people have kind of gotten a little bit of coronavirus fatigue. And I would just, I'm not one to lecture anyone, but I think we're far from through this. And I think people just need to buckle down and stay safe. But Dan, let's talk about some of the technology that PayPal is using. So in addition to what you're describing, which I think is amazing, they're using something called QR code, which allows you to basically a visual, like almost like a symbol or an icon that you can scan on your phone, and that does something, right? I mean, that is a technology that has existed for quite some time. But now you can buy groceries, you can buy products using those QR codes.
QR codes is something we've struggled with for a long time. Like, you could go to the grocery store, read a QR code, and it would give you a coupon. I question it because it just never caught on all that well. I used to work for a company that did discounts at local restaurants based on QR codes, and it never caught on in even a tiny fashion. I don't know where the QR code reader is on my iPhone, so I worry about PayPal using this. Now, if they integrate it, so I just point my phone at something and it comes up, that's great. That's actually how Amazon does the discount for Prime members in Whole Foods. It's a QR code. I can never successfully bring the QR code up on my phone. And they always say, well, you're on our Wi-Fi. Yes, I'm on your Wi-Fi. It just says, ask an associate. Well, you're an associate. Just tell me how to make this work. QR codes to me seems like a little bit of a strange way to go because these have been around for a decade. And Jeff, how often do you use a QR code?
Up until I read the article, I probably haven't used it in a long time. Maybe, people were using it on retirement enrollment posters. You could take your phone and enroll in a retirement plan. The last time I saw that was maybe 3, 4, or 5 years ago.
Yeah, so I hope they know what they're doing, but I worry about this because anytime there's something that's been around that kind of didn't become the norm, I wonder a little bit about whether this will actually be something people use. That might be me being pessimistic. PayPal knows how customers work. They've done a really great job with all of their products. I love, my happiest thing is when I'm on some random website ordering, or even a big one. I ordered from Omaha Steaks a few weeks ago. Steaks the first time and side dishes the second time because I got tired of all the side dishes I know how to make. And Omaha Steaks, when I saw at the checkout that I could use PayPal, I just went, oh, thank God. I don't have to type in my address. I don't have to do all these 600 hoops you have to go through. All I have to do is log into my PayPal. PayPal will handle it. It'll show up on my credit card. I'll go pay the credit card bill that afternoon. So I'm a big fan of that. So maybe they know what they're doing, but it is a tiny bit of a red flag.
Dan, what does this mean in terms of, transactioning? This, in my mind, speeds up transactions. Does this at all, eventually when we get to more of a electronic society, and I'm not talking about Bitcoin and blockchain, what I'm talking about is, does this allow us to lower, for example, the credit card charges that, for example, small businesses have to pay when you use your credit card, right? A lot of them you must use a $5 minimum or a $10 minimum because they get charged some amount of money to use that. Do you ever see a time where through some of these technologies that we actually can lower some of those transaction costs? These businesses, these credit card companies and others can make money because we don't want to deprive people of money, but that becomes a commodity in a sense.
So I don't know the mechanics of it, but we're largely seeing those charges disappear. There's a vending machine in my building in the clubhouse that I can use my phone to pay via credit card. So if they're selling whatever the transactional fee is there, that if they're paying one, it's very, very small. I can say anecdotally, I cannot remember the last time I was in a grocery store or any store where it had a minimum for a credit card transaction. When I used to run a store, we didn't have a minimum, but for a credit card charge, it was a percentage. And American Express was much higher. It was 3%. So while we were able to take American Express, we generally chose not to unless it was a very big purchase where it was worth it. A debit card, we always paid, I want to say, a quarter. No matter what it was just a quarter. So if you came in and bought something little on a debit card, it wasn't super worth it. And people would ask us, oh, debit or credit card. And at various points, depending on our deal, one was better than the other, and it mattered for us. This is something that as a store, you negotiate. Square has democratized this. So any business, you remember the old days, you had to buy a $20,000 point of sale system. You had to negotiate with a bank to take credit cards. It was difficult to set up, say, gift cards. All that goes back 15 years ago when I ran a retail store. Now you buy a $35 Square reader and it takes about 10 minutes to set up, and it's a very low transactional fee. And Square may not be alone in doing this, but in general, all of these fees have come down, and it's generally easier to run a store. As a consumer, you have a lot more choice in credit card. I know that I have an Apple card, and Apple was very upfront about what the percentages are. And that frankly doesn't matter to me because I don't carry a balance on my credit card. So I generally am looking at rewards much more than I'm looking at what I'm paying, because on the other hand, you want to know, well, what if I did get into trouble? What if, my job was furloughed for 3 months and I needed to use my credit cards more than I normally do? You have a lot more leeway now to negotiate those numbers down. And if you're working in this economy, if you have a balance, call your bank up and negotiate. Call another credit card company and ask about a 0%, transfer card where you can pay that off. Generally, and I know I've gone off a little bit off the rails here.
It's okay.
Generally, the most money you can make is paying down credit card debt. Because if you have something at 16 or 17%, you pay that off, you've essentially given yourself 16 or 17%. It's really hard to make 16 or 17% in the stock market. In fact, if you're a normal conservative buy and hold investor, you're more likely to make 9, 10% in the long term. So getting rid of credit card debt or negotiating away credit card debt is really, really a smart thing to do.
Yeah, well, certainly contactless payments, that's also a very smart thing to do. It's right in line, I'm sure, with what the CD, and I'm almost positive what the CDC and other health officials would want, to not touch each other, stay socially distant, and keep ourselves protected. Dan, I want to hold you over, but when we come back, we're going to talk about a recent Microsoft announcement about Excel macros being hacked. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive Fibrex composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Welcome back. We're talking to Daniel Klein, Senior Technology and Consumer Products Reporter with The Motley Fool. Dan, thanks so much for sticking around this morning.
Thanks for keeping me.
So Dan, unfortunately during this very difficult time, challenging time, extraordinary circumstances, there's still a lot of scams going on, a lot of phishing scams, a lot of malware. And Microsoft just recently announced that its macros, the coding that goes on to automate a lot of features with Excel, has been hacked and being used for phishing scams. This has me greatly worried for businesses and also individuals that use the software.
Yeah, well, here's where you have to be careful. Don't open up a file that you didn't ask for that you don't know where it's from. So if I get an email from Jeff, which I get 3 or 4 emails a week from Jeff talking about the show, and the email doesn't say hello, and it just has an attached file, I'm not going to open that file because Jeff didn't say, hey, Dan, here's the file, here's what it does. You're going to put this in Excel. It's going to help you do this better. So this is an area where you have to protect yourself. You're not going to open, like if you get a package in the mail and you didn't order a package, you don't know who it's from, you're going to be a little bit suspicious. You have to apply that same logic. And I will tell you that right now, Excel on this computer that I'm using is for some reason in some sort of language I don't speak. I don't even know what the characters are. I have no idea what's wrong with it. At some point, I'm just going to have to uninstall it and reinstall it. I've been getting around it by using Google Sheets. I don't know what I did. I don't know what happened. I don't remember opening something I shouldn't have. But if I'm someone who's pretty tech savvy, and right now any document I open in Excel comes up as gobbledygook characters in a language I can't, and I may have just accidentally hit a setting. That could be it too. But you have to be really, really careful. This goes for anything you get in your email, over Slack, over any method of communication, if you didn't ask for it, if it wasn't communicated to you what it is, don't open it. If somebody sends you, pictures of their new baby and then, hey, here are some new pictures of okay, well, that's an explanation. If just that same person who had a baby just sends you pictures with no words, write them an email back and say, did you mean to send this? You just really have to be proactive in being careful. And when Microsoft is giving a warning, that means people are really actively doing this, and it's a pretty big problem. So just, err on the side of caution. What's the benefit of opening something that you don't know what it is? Even if it is something positive, how positive could it be when it's an Excel macro? If your boss wants you to have an Excel macro, he or she will probably tell you, I'm sending you something, here's how you install it. Just be really wary of what you open.
Yeah, I think you also bring up a good point, which is you should stay current with all of your software. So especially, if you're part of a big company, typically network administrators, those that run the systems, run regular patches and get the operating system as well as these software packages updated. For smaller businesses, for individuals like you and I, it's very important to go out and update. And a lot of computers, especially newer computers, have the ability to automate this process. But I would encourage people to always go to the help. You can click the help, go to the dropdown, go to the about, and look if you're using the latest piece of software. But Dan, I guess more broadly speaking, I guess it's just disappointing that, it's human nature, I get it. And we don't know where these bad actors are. Maybe they're in the US, maybe they're outside the US, but it's just very disappointing to me that someone would create a macro. When you click this macro, and it could look legitimate, it goes in and then harvests some very personal information about yourself and goes out and puts it on the dark web or in a collection somewhere for someone to use for bad purposes. That to me is pretty disappointing, but you got to be vigilant.
I think it's fair to say we can be disappointed in the underbelly of humanity overall, that there's a lot of people, trying to scam you. There's a lot of people trying to do stuff. And it's be careful. Mm-hmm. I know that I don't input my credit card information when I'm on public Wi-Fi because you just don't know, who has access to that. Now, obviously, my computer has some things stored. So if I don't have to enter it and I can use PayPal to pay, well, I'll do that. But you just have to be a little bit careful and know that there's people out there. And a back part of this, because it's often financial information they're looking to steal, it's very easy to monitor your accounts. I know that every couple of days, I look through all of my accounts. Like, are there credit card charges that don't seem to make sense? And a lot of times you look and you go like, I didn't make that charge. And then you realize you did, but the name of the company doesn't actually reflect what you actually bought. So you think you bought like from a fitness company, and it actually has some sort of holding company name. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of due diligence to figure out. But the longer you let something go, the more likely you are to not know what it is. So you look in your account, you're like, $800 for what? Like, I don't. And then if that's a week later, maybe you don't remember. Yeah, I bought a new exercise bike. That's what that charge is. So you really have to be on top of your accounts and manage them. That's also important is your bank, your credit card, they often have a period of time, and it's longer for individuals than businesses, where if you don't report the fraud by 30 days, they're not going to investigate it. With a business, that can be as short as 3 days. So it is very important to monitor all your transactions, all your accounts, to make sure you have up-to-date virus protection software, to be doing, look, I hate telling people to be paranoid, but be a little paranoid. Just take the normal basic steps. And you mentioned updating your software. Everyone hates doing that. If you remember, we had to postpone taping a couple weeks ago because I ran the update on my Mac and I didn't realize it was updating the full operating system, and it took 4 hours. It wasn't fun. I should have done that overnight. But I put it off for like 2 months. So it probably built up and built up and built up. That's something just like when it asks you to do it, when you finish your day, just do it. So you don't have to worry about it later. And that will keep you safer.
Yeah. And I can tell you, Dan, when you were referring to some charges, I do. I know my wife also goes through, I think my mother and father also, they go through their credit card account online. They find once a day. And when things are out of, I can just speak to myself, when things are out of kilter and something doesn't look right, I let the bank know. And then if it's, for example, I had an issue with Apple, an erroneous charge, someone had stolen my credit card within the last month, my information. I actually contacted Apple. So I did two things. I contacted the bank, then I contacted Apple, worked with Apple customer service, and they were able to resolve it. So I had these two entities, the holding bank and also not customer, but the business, to make sure that we were able to kind of work that back. But you do have to be vigilant. I don't know if it's paranoid. I don't know if I would describe it as paranoid. I would just say you have to be vigilant and you have to know the right step to take. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll give you the last word on this, Dan, is you should also check your credit report on a regular basis to make sure that you are not getting hit, or credit cards are not being opened, your credit isn't being dinged for any particular reason.
Yeah, and that's very easy. Most credit cards offer you some variation of your credit report.
Yep.
And I know that my credit is usually a little under 800. So solid credit. I pay my bills. And a few months ago, I looked at my credit report on my credit card app, and one of them had my credit score where it normally is. The other one had it at like 690. And I went, uh-oh. And I looked through everything and nothing was wrong. I couldn't see anything. So at first I said, well, I should call. And I'm like, who am I going to call? Like, there's nothing wrong on the credit report. I'm not seeing anything. I'm just like, you know what? When does it update again? It updates again in 3 days. I will check back in 3 days.
Sure.
Well, in 3 days, it was back to where it was supposed to be. I'm not entirely sure what I would have done had it not been, because one report was saying it's fine, one report. But this actually can be an issue if you go to get a mortgage or a loan where there's multiple credit scores, and sometimes there can be a problem. And I know when we did our mortgage on the house I'm in right now, my mortgage broker came to me and said, hey, you have like $5,000 in credit card bills. Can you pay those off? It will improve your credit score by like 40 or 50 points. And I said, oh, I was going to pay them at the end of the month. We just moved. I put the move on my credit card. And he said, well, the bank's about to run all your stuff. So if you could pay that now, it would help you.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing, if you're getting a loan, you want to talk to the people that can help you make the right decisions. There's parts of your credit report you can't control. The length since you've had a credit card, you have to wait. But not having a balance, making sure you're paying on time, those are things you can do, and monitoring. Because I've had fraudulent charges show up. I've had things appear on my credit report that I'm like, that's not me. I'm not that person. I never lived at that address. And you have to address those things. And it's pretty easy if you stay on top of it.
Yeah, good. All good things. And unfortunately, in today's world, you need to do that as part of your relationship with money. And we should be teaching people at all levels of society about these things. Dan, always a pleasure chatting with you. Stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you again next week.
I'll see you next week, Jeff. Thank you.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest or someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.